Okay. I don't think we're I don't think we're that pushed for time, but anyway.
Neil coming along.
Okay. All right. Hate to put us on a short leash here for the visiting, but I'm going to go ahead and get started with class since we are live. So, who was it used to say you are looking live at whatever sporting venue it is? Well, I appreciate you being here. I was anticipating both having bad weather this morning and it being a holiday weekend that we would have a light crowd, but I am pleasantly surprised. I appreciate very much you being here, and if you're watching online, we appreciate that too. So today is going to serve as a bookend, not only for this quarter, our class on hospitality, but this will be the bookend for our entire year that we have focused on the servant heart. Next quarter, we'll sort of begin a new year, de facto. Our new year actually starts in the fall, but with summer series, that usually sets the tone for our next year for our education program. So we're looking forward to that. Our summer series this year will be focusing on enemies of the heart. And I'll talk more about that next week in the Shepherd's Update. But if you look at the topics, somebody said, well, this just looks like a list of sins. And I said, well, it is, but it's not just a list of sins. We're talking about, what are the challenges that we face to having a clean heart. That's what our summer series will be about, and John has worked really hard putting that together, and I appreciate him doing that, and I'm very much looking forward to our summer series coming up. I go into people's houses every day, and I am surprised at the number of those that somewhere might be in the living room, might be in the dining room, kitchen, bedroom, rec room, somewhere in their house, they have posted a scripture. And it's usually, the well-known ones. Just the other day, I saw Lord bless you and keep you. I can do all things through Christ. God works for the good of those who love, all of those. One that I never see, and I make a note of it, because the one that hung in our house, this was my mother's favorite verse, and this hung in our house all my life growing up, and it was in King James. It is Micah 6:8. He hath showed you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of thee, but to do justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with thy God. Now, it would serve for us to back up and unpack really what is being said here. Micah is a prophet who, just as most of the prophets did, were bringing a message that God was going to take Judah down and that they were going to go into captivity. Judah and Israel. And so the first 5 chapters is all the gloom and doom that God is going to bring on these people and why, what their transgressions are. And so we get to chapter 6, and God basically takes the place of those who are going to face this persecution, and he says, here's what you're going to say. With what shall I come before Yahweh and bow myself before God on high? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? Will Yahweh be pleased with thousands of rams, with 10,000s of rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? In other words, what can I do to avoid this calamity that is coming? And then God will say, He has told you, oh man, what is good. What does Yahweh require of you but to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God? In other words, he says, I don't want all of this sacrifice and I don't want your firstborn. What I want you to do is to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with me. That's all. Now, the interesting part of this to me, if you actually look at, because you might look and say, well, what does to do justice mean? And I think typically we interpret that as, well, to be fair, right? To deal fairly with people. And I think that's part of it. But if you look at the actual Hebrew words, it's azoft mishpat, which means do judgment. Do judgment. And so I thought about that. And I guess if there were an NWV, the Nelson Whitfield version, it would say, use good judgment. Use good judgment. How many of you remember your parents, your mother saying to you when you were going out to do something, use good judgment? Anybody ever heard their mother say that to them? What was she saying when she said that? Anybody? What did she mean?
Make good choices.
Make good choices. Be with good company. All right. What else? Use common sense. Don't do anything stupid. Yeah, so we've got this idea. I could have sworn that I remembered Andy Griffith, but I looked it up on the internet and it said no, that was not a thing. But I just know Andy Griffith said, act like you got some smart. Am I right? Do you remember him saying that? Maybe I made it up. I don't know. But anyway, I just remember him looking at Barney and say, act like you got some smart. But anyway, so this idea of do justice, love kindness, really is what we have been talking about all quarter, last 2 quarters really, in love like Jesus and hospitality. All right? Okay. Not to belabor that, but so today I'm going to basically review, just kind of walk us back through what we've talked about this quarter. So we started out, we said hospitality in a part of speech is actually a noun, right? But when you think about it, it very much acts like a verb because it requires action. Hospitality is not just a thing that sits out there. It's what we do. It's what we do for other people. So the objective of hospitality, the objective of loving like Jesus, is to put the servant heart into action by more adequately serving each other. And this was our foundational scripture, Matthew chapter 25. When the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, he'll sit on his glorious throne, and all the nations will be gathered before him. and he will separate the people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. And then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink, and I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." And then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you?" And the king will reply, "Truly, I tell you, whatever you did for the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." And then we looked, there are a number of passages. I just picked a couple to revisit. But hospitality is something that's a thread that runs all the way through the New Testament. The end of all things is near. 1 Peter. "Therefore be alert and of sober mind so that you may pray. Above all, most importantly, above all, love each other deeply, because love covers over a multitude of sins." And we talked about the meaning of that is, if you love someone, their offenses are easy to overlook, are easy to just accept. Offer hospitality to one another without grumbling. How many times do you find yourself doing something for someone, but you're really not happy about it? It's like, "Oh, God, I can't believe I got to do this." That's not the way we love each other. Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. So typically, and we talked about this, how our gifts, especially in our culture, but maybe all over the world, typically we use our gifts, our talents, to serve ourselves. And this is telling us here, use those gifts to serve other people. And then Romans chapter 12, love must be sincere. Hate what is evil, cling to what is good. Be devoted to one another in love. Honor one another above yourselves. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor serving the Lord. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Share with the Lord's people who are in need, all of which is just part of practicing hospitality. That's what it's all about. So we talked about this. The word translated hospitable is not actually hospitable. It's actually the word philoxenon. Now, if you break this down, it makes a lot of sense, right? Where else do we see philo? What's philo? We know what that means, right? That's a type of love, right? Philo. And then where else do you see the word xenon? Xenophobia. Xenophobia is what? Fear of strangers. Fear of people, right? But this is the opposite. This is lover of strangers. That's what hospitality means, lover of strangers. And the general idea is that of taking care of people, meeting their needs. So these are the topics that we covered: the gift of nourishment, the gift of service, the gift of shelter, the gift of benevolence, the gift of comfort, the gift of companionship, missed opportunities, teaching children hospitality, and God's gifts of hospitality to Christians. And I want to briefly revisit each of these topics just to sort of recap what we talked about. The gift of nourishment. Nothing says hospitality like food. Now that's the one that, you say hospitality, and that's the first thing that's going to come to mind, right? Is having people over to your house for dinner, taking somebody out to dinner or whatever. It's all about food. And food is important. Food helps us get to know each other because, when you have someone over, the act of preparing, serving, and eating food, it provides some level of distraction while you're spending time. It relieves that awkwardness of just, what are we going to talk about, right? And so eating together is indeed a gift, right? It is a gift. It is an opportunity to get to know each other on a very low stress level. And the gift of service. The title of this lesson was a cup of cold water. And really what we're talking about here is looking for opportunities to serve others. Do you genuinely look for those opportunities, or do you finally give in after you can't avoid it anymore? To embrace this gift says, I can do that for you, or I can do that with you. And think about the number of businesses now that have taken the place of what people used to do for each other, right? How many of you lived in a community growing up, or I don't know. This typically, I guess, would happen more in a rural community than in a bigger city, but where you didn't hire somebody to do everything for you. You just called somebody who knew how to do it, and they came over and helped you do it. I mean, anybody experience that? And that's gone today, right? I mean, we have business. I mean, the things I see trucks driving by that they will come to your house and do, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. People will pay you to do that? I wish I had thought to make a note. I saw one the other day. Seriously, I was like, you have got to be kidding me. Somebody pays you to do that. Enough to where you have a truck with a big label on it that says you do that. Blows my mind. Anyway, so the gift of shelter. Now, shelter is something, especially with strangers, that is really dicey anymore, right? I mean, for safety reasons, it's probably something that you just probably can't risk doing. But there are times when extending shelter to someone is vitally important. Somebody in our family here who is experiencing crisis or whatever, and they need a place to stay, and a hotel would suffice, but sometimes maybe just providing them a home might be better, because it sends a profound message of wanting someone to feel protected from external threats, from the elements and those who seek to do them harm. It communicates understanding that a person needs a place to retreat. So it goes beyond just providing a place for someone to stay. It sends a message. And that message is, I care about your well-being. I care about your safety. More than just providing you a place to stay. I care about you. And that is a bigger message. The gift of benevolence. Now, benevolence, I'm going to go a little different angle than you would typically think. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with benevolence. When I was serving as an elder, the bulk of my time, I was the elder over benevolence. And that, let me tell you, you haven't lived until you've been the elder over benevolence. I mean, people show up at this place and man, they have stories. Everybody's got a story, and it will jade you. But anyway, benevolence is vitally important for churches, right? I mean, it's how we can provide for strangers who come to the building. But here's the problem with benevolence, and this is where you have to be careful with benevolence, because benevolence can be just an arm's length. I can see enough of your problem to deal with you to a certain point. And here's what I'm willing to do, which largely now, and Danny Seal does a great job with it. Jack Campbell was incredible. I mean, Jack just, that man just had a heart for benevolence. I mean, he was amazing. He would actually, it wasn't just here's something, be on your way. It was, he would get to know people, find out what was going on with them. But we have to be careful that it's not just a here's a Kroger card, be on your way. Because that doesn't really say, I want to know you, I want to understand you, I want to seek to understand so that I can really help you and develop a relationship with you. Okay? But that's not to say that benevolence doesn't have its place. It absolutely does. I'm just saying we have to be careful because it can be, like I say, a very arm's length solution to a problem. The gift of comfort. So comfort communicates, I care about how you're feeling and what you're experiencing. How many of you all remember when you were a child and you were left out of something? You were picked last for whatever team, right? There was a party and you weren't invited. John, you feeling this? I mean, but you never forget that.
In the fourth grade, for softball, I was assigned.
Fourth grade softball, you were assigned. You weren't even picked. And he's still feeling it today. But that's what we do, right? I mean, these things scar us, right? Because why? It says, nobody cares. People don't care about me. What do we crave more than anything? And it's to be cared about. And so if we know each other, we can deal with any crisis that comes into this congregation. Why? Because every person here knows somebody who's dealt with something. I mean, I don't think there's anything that somebody in this congregation hasn't had to deal with. You want to be loved, absolutely. And so the way we do that is to say, I don't know how to deal with your problem, but I know somebody who does. And I want to get them involved. Okay, the gift of companionship. Now, companionship communicates that, we have something in common. I want to know you. I want to be known by you. It gets past that arm's length and invites you into my vulnerable space. This goes back to what I was saying. Again, it ties into the gift of comfort, right? I mean, companionship is vitally important to human beings. And, to a church family, the closer a church family is, and the more of a tribe mentality that we have, we talked about that in Love Like Jesus. The tribe mentality is everything is known, and we protect our own. We protect our own. And here's the thing, if we do that, the evangelism will take care of itself. If it is obvious that we take care of each other, word will be around and people will fight to get into this tribe. I want to be part of that. I want to be a companion. I want to be treated like that. Missed opportunities. Missed opportunities, we've all missed opportunities. Problem is, sometimes you miss opportunities because you weren't aware. But the bad part is, sometimes you miss opportunities because you just take a pass. The priest and the Levite. I just don't want to get involved. And how many people have we lost because of missed opportunities? Because we didn't know them or know their needs, that's being unaware, or we didn't respond to what they needed, that's just taking a pass. But it's never too late to acknowledge, I could have done better. It's not about apologizing. It's just about being humble and saying, I can do better, and I will do better. Tony brought up last week Marley's Ghost, and he used it in a different context. But Marley was all about the missed opportunity. In fact, I was just going to read part of, where Marley's ghost comes back to visit Scrooge, and he says, "Oh, captive bound and double ironed," and I'm going to abridge this. He says, "Not to know that no space of regret can make amends for one's life's opportunity misused. Yet such was I. Oh, such was I." And Scrooge says, "But you were always a good man of business, Jacob." "Business," cried the ghost, wringing its hands again. "Mankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, forbearance, and benevolence were all my business. The dealings of my trade were but a drop of water in the comprehensive ocean of my business." Can we all look at ourselves and say, what we see is so important, pales in comparison to what is really our business, and that is mankind. That is our brothers and sisters here. So we have to maintain our focus so that we don't miss opportunities. All right. And then teaching children hospitality. And this, if you remember, for those of y'all who are here, this is my granddaughter, Kennedy, 2 years old. And I got a kick out of this picture because in this picture, she's carrying a purse and a cell phone. And what in the world does a 2-year-old need with a cell phone except that's what she sees her mother have in her hands, and she wants to be like her mother. Kids like to mimic what they see adults doing. So it's very important what they see us do. If we want children to be polite, they need to see us being polite. If we want them to share, they need to see us sharing and serving and meeting people. Now, the caveat to this is we have to be, there is this thing, teaching kids not to talk to strangers, right? And teaching them boundaries and making sure they're aware of what is not okay for adults to be interacting in ways for adults to be interacting with them. That's priority. But they do need to understand, too, that all of these traits of hospitality, they see us practicing, and they want to do it too. And then God's gift of hospitality to Christians, and really what this is about is washing each other's feet. And Jesus did this literally with the apostles at what we call the Last Supper. But figuratively speaking, if we can have the mentality of washing each other's feet, again, what better evangelism can there be? When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. Do you understand what I have done for you? You call me teacher and Lord. Now, meaning he was their master. Whatever he said, they obeyed. And rightly so, for that's what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you should wash one another's feet. And this had to be shocking to them. It's like, washing feet? You got to be kidding me. I mean, that's the lowest of the low. And he says, I've set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. Vitally important ways to serve each other. Very truly, I say to you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them. I believe this is where we're going to end. For you were called, this is Galatians chapter 5. For you were called to freedom, brothers, only do not use your freedom as an opportunity for the flesh. In other words, to satisfy yourself. But through love, serve one another. For the whole law is fulfilled in one word. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. But if you bite and devour one another, watch out that you're not consumed by one another. Yeah. But I say walk by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh. For the desires of the flesh are against the Spirit, and the desires of the Spirit are against the flesh. For these are opposed to each other to keep you from doing the things you want to do. But if you're led by the Spirit, you're not under the law. Now, the works of the flesh are evident: sexual immorality, impurity, sensuality, idolatry, sorcery, enmity, strife, jealousy, fits of anger, rivalries, dissensions, divisions, envy, drunkenness, orgies, and things like these. I warn you, as I warned you before, that those who do such things will not inherit the kingdom of God. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. And those who belong to Christ have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. If we live by the Spirit, let us also keep in step with the Spirit. Let us not become conceited, provoking one another, envying one another. So, to sum it all up, basically, we just have to get over ourselves. Get over yourself. Look to serve other people. Show that Christ really does change the way you behave, the way you react to other people. And you will be hospitable. You can't help it. I mean, I was talking about this with somebody the other day, and they said, we think about hospitality in terms of like our houses and what we have to give. Jesus didn't have a house. The only hospitality Jesus could give was his heart. Was his heart. And I thought, wow, how brilliant is that? Jesus didn't have a house. He couldn't have people over for dinner. He showed his hospitality by giving his heart. And that is what he asks us to do. All right, any questions, comments? Anybody? All right, well, that's all I can stands, and I can't stands no more. Thank you for being here. If you've been with us all quarter, thank you. Next quarter, we'll be back to more of a normal schedule. I'll get into that next week at the Shepherd's Update. Hope you have a good and safe holiday, and we'll meet again at the next appointed time. We'll close us with a prayer and we'll be dismissed. Father.